Today on the program, our topic is Uniting with Youth Against Corruption, Shaping Tomorrow's Integrity Using FOIA 2011 as a tool. Well, the FOIA is the Freedom of Information Act 2011. So today we're going to be looking at how it can be used as a tool with regards to shaping integrity, especially propelling the young people to fight against corruption. Joining the conversation today on the program, Transparency Talk. Sanitize Nigeria, say no to corruption through the FOI. We have Mr. Emmanuel Uday, Program Officer, CTA, Anambra State. Mr. Emmanuel, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Okay, just like I said earlier, we're going to be looking at how young people can be united to fight against corruption using the FOIA 2011 as a tool. And it's the Freedom of Information Act 2011. All right, Mr. Emmanuel, would like to start with this. Would like to know, a lot of people will say that you could fight for anything, you could advocate for anything, but what inspired you to join the fight against corruption, and how do you think the young people can actually make a meaningful impact?
Well, thank you for the question. Uh, I'm sure as that now, virtually everyone in our country know the impact of corruption in our country. The public institutions, the private sector, virtually everywhere you look at, you see the impact and traces of corruption. And then the CTA, being an organization in the forefront of fighting for transparency and accountability, especially in governance, um, took the initiative to one, energize the public by providing them with tools, providing them with the required awareness and consciousness that we actually have what we need as individuals and as a collective to do something about the issue of corruption. Now, if you're going to do it, are we going to expect those who are benefiting from the corruption to fight it? Not quite. So the targets seem to be younger ones who at the moment are more impacted by the corruption in the society, and at least for now do not seem to be beneficiaries of this corruption. So the campaign to leverage on the strength and the should I say the energies of the young ones is basically that with these individuals, they know their futures and the countries that of the country is at stake. So if we are able to convince them, we have a greater chance to at least fight corruption to the barest minimum and hopefully maybe eliminate it if it is possible.
Okay, all right. So we're still talking about corruption, but specifically, we are talking about how we can use the FOIA Act as a tool to fight corruption. So now I want to ask, what do you think the FOI Act can do with regards to the issue of fighting corruption, particularly as young people taking the forefront?
Okay, thank you very much. Now, the Freedom of Information Act is a piece of legislation that makes it legal and within its framework, right? Possible for me as a citizen or any one of you there to access any federal institution, any public agency, or even private firms where government that does business with government and request for any information, any data, any record that is supposed to be available to the public. Now, when you make that demand by the FOI Act, they are supposed to respond to you. How does that help me? I'm a citizen. I have certain rights. I live in certain environment. From time to time, we hear government say, we've done this, we've approved this, we've energized this, we've done this and that. And then nothing seems to happen. So if I hear, for instance, that they have awarded a contract for the construction of a primary healthcare center in my community, and it was awarded to Dr. Priska's company, I can, relying on the FOI Act, request for information to know the details. How many blocks? What is the duration? What is the sum?
Okay.
Who are the people? So we believe that the FOI Act, if utilized by citizens, will create one, a more informed populace, and a more informed populace are likely to challenge the ills and constraints that we currently have fueling corruption in Nigeria.
Okay. All right. So now, with the FOI Act, it's expected that people should be free to have access to information anyhow and anytime they want. Now, what are some of the challenges that young people can face with regards to accessing information through the FOI? To the FOIA, and how can these challenges be addressed? Because sometimes, even as journalists, because the essence of this FOI Act is for everybody to, if you want information, you go ahead, you get information. But sometimes you see that even in the course of our work, I'm talking about us now as journalists, you're trying to access information, there are lots of bottlenecks. They will tell you gotta meet this person. They will tell you this one is official secret. This one is sensitive. You can't have access to it, and all this turnaround. So now, the thing is, I'm a young person. I'm passionate about fighting corruption, and I believe that the FOIA Act could actually be a useful tool. And I'm facing challenges utilizing it. What can I do?
Okay, the first step really is for every interested party to get themselves, one, acquainted with the provisions of that act. The Freedom of Information Act has 32, shall I say, 32 sections, and each one has specific provisions on how and what it allows and what it does not allow. It also gives you basically sufficient information on how to utilize it. Now, there is a major impediment, however. The FOI Act came into effect in 2011, and as we speak, in fact, most states in Nigeria are yet to domesticate it. Then the CTA is currently driving the push to have the FOI domesticated in Anambra, Edo, and the Federal Capital Territory. What we are looking at is if this law comes through the State House of Assembly, and whichever way it has to go, becomes domesticated. So we now have a Freedom of Information Bill for Anambra State, and relying on that, the people who want to use it have something handy. But then I can't go into a fight with something as unique and dynamic as corruption and hope to just do it with layman's knowledge. So you need to, one, acquaint yourself with the provisions of the FOIA and then let it guide you. That is the first part. The second part is, yes, the FOIA spells out both how you can use it, and then when you face obstruction, how you can seek redress. So getting those information and being knowledgeable about them prepares someone who wants to leverage on the power of that legislation to be able to do whatever it is they're planning to do with the FOIA. Thank you.
All right. Okay, now the word is digital, and there happens to be a lot of technological innovations driving how people do certain things in business and personal life and whatever thing you want to do. Technology is the new normal right now. So people are leveraging the, many opportunities presented with all those innovations. Now, what I want to see is how can we leverage this technology and particularly social media to amplify anti-corruption efforts and engage more young people to take a stand with regards to the fight against corruption?
Okay, that is quite a lot of work to do.
But you think it's possible
yes.
to leverage on the power of the social media?
Yes, okay. Yes. Now, the Center for Transparency Advocacy, under the leadership of Engineer Faith Nwadishi, a woman with that passion to have a better country bequeathed to the younger generation, has several programs, several initiatives that they are using to push how we can get more persons, especially younger ones, you know, get involved, one, with the war against corruption, and two, using the FOIA. It will interest you, for instance, that the CTA organized a nationwide competition among young people where they use art to express or demonstrate the impact of corruption on them or their environment. It was designed with the intention of getting these people to appreciate that. Don't just say, I'm not affected, it's none of my business. We have a lot of undergraduates that are signing up on this program. We have several initiatives. We are on air now talking about this. If you visit the website of CTA, the different handles that they use on both digital and online, the online platforms, you see campaigns, jingles, and different things that they've created, all towards creating awareness and hoping that with sufficient awareness, you have enough foot soldiers to drive this. It's an agency pushing it, but then it has to become our own thing, where it goes beyond just one agency under a person's leadership pushing it. It becomes our collective effort, to achieve this. So the campaign is on. There are several young persons coming up. There are different ideas that people are bringing on board in their own unique way. And some of them, of course, this is just the beginning of this program. As we continue, we're going to also roll out and announce to the public the different aspects that they can key in and be part of this campaign.
Okay. All right, just to remind you that the program is Transparency Talk, Sanitize Nigeria, Say No to Corruption through the FOI. And today we're looking at uniting with youths against corruption, shaping tomorrow's integrity using FOIA 2011 as a tool. And we have as our guest in the studio Mr. Emmanuel Ude, Program Officer, CTA Anambra State. We'll be right back after now.
Ekene m unu ndị be anyị daalụnụ ịma na ị nwere ikike ịjụ esi ihe na-eme n'obodo gị, ọ dị gị n'aka. Ebe ikike ga-adị bụ na iwu Freedom of Information Act FOIA 2011.
Freedom of Information Act
eyo FOIA bụ kpakpando na-amụke na-emeghere gị ụzọ iji wee jụta ese ihe na-eme n'obodo gị. Biko ndị ọchịchị tọọ ntị na webata iwu FOIA 2011 ka ọ dị ire n'obodo gị, maka na ọ ga-akwa ụzọ ime ihe ya anya oghe. Tete n'ụlọ ndebe anyị mara oke na orubere gị ịjụta esi ihe na-eme n'obodo maọbụ ihe gọọmenti na-eme, ma n'ụtụtụ ma n'ehihie.
Anyị dị njikere.
FOIA bụ ya bụ iwu. FOIA 2011 bụ egwu eji. Gọọmenti, ndị ọchịchị kata na obi mee ihe n'ụzọ kwụ ọtọ. Tinye iwu FOIA ka ọ lụba ọlụ. Ibe anyị nụ anọzina ka ọ na ọgbasaghị gị. Tinye ikike ị nwere n'ọlụ ịjụta esi ihe gọọmenti na-eme oge niile. FOIA ọganiru. FOIA udo. FOIA pụtara ọhaneze na gọọmenti ịlụkọ ọlụ ọnụ maka mmepe site n'ime ihe n'ụzọ ya anya oghe na ịkwụba aka ọtọ. Ozi a si n'aka Center for Transparency Advocacy site n'enyemaka Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program ROLAC na nkwado ego European Union site n'aka International IDEA. FOIA 2011.
Ikike ọhaneze ịjụta ese ihe na-eme n'obodo ha.
Okay, you're welcome back to the program. It's still Transparency Talk, Sanitize Nigeria, saying it to corruption through the FOI. And we've been discussing the role of young people and why it's important to unite them to fight against corruption using the FOIA 2011 as a tool. And we'll be speaking with Mr. Emmanuel Ude. So now, Mr. Emmanuel Ude, let's get personal. Now, do you have any personal experience where you or someone you know faced corruption, and how did this shape your perspective as a young person with regards to the fight against corruption?
Okay, I've had several experiences, but then I think the one that was that touched me the most was a project that was supposedly commissioned in my community.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we had challenges with water, and then a project was commissioned. They said we now had a borehole, functional borehole. We saw the video and all that.
Yeah.
And so I felt, well, at least our people can now relax and have some decent and nice experience with water.
Yeah.
But then I traveled home and I saw everywhere was dry. So I asked what happened. And what we learned was that the contractor put up a physical edifice. The borehole was not functional, but because the government needed to commission it, they contracted water tanker to deliver water into the tanks, and that was what was commissioned. And so it became a challenge. If this is allowed to, stay, I don't know how many more persons will suffer this. You claiming you've provided water, we have it everywhere online and in traditional media, but then the people have just been shortchanged. So we started going from office to find out. But then my major discovery was that it wasn't just the contractor. So even the government officials, in quotes, who came to commission, they were not completely deceived. They were aware of what happened.
Wow.
Yes. I didn't get to find out through the FOIA. I had to, it was a lot of battle to get to the root of the matter. As we speak, we are now building a different borehole, now as a community, solving that problem on our own with our personal resources. But then one of the things I found was if I had known really the power that the FOIA, make possible for me,
Then you
perhaps
would have utilized this.
yes, I would have. I would have. So when I look at it, it's a personal experience that I felt. There are several other persons who are facing different difficulty, issues right now
Yeah.
that can comfortably be resolved if they become aware of the opportunity provided them in the FOIA.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my most touching personal experience.
Okay, but I just want to ask, were you guys able to resolve the whole situation?
Well, no. We resorted to self-help. Now we are going to provide water for our people,
Wow.
but at least we know the people who are involved, including their
It's not gonna be
collaborators.
business as usual.
Yeah, we know their collaborators from our community
Okay.
and all that. And
Okay.
usually the traditional way of dealing with things will follow it.
Okay. All right. So finally, let's look at sustainability, because it's usually very easy to start something, but the problem most times is sustainability. A lot of people tend to maybe give up along the way or just get carried away, and what is going on, what they started, they won't see to completion. So now, what legacy do you envision for the youth-led anti-corruption movement in Nigeria, and how can we ensure sustainability beyond individual effort? Because if it's a collective effort, I think some people say that teamwork makes the dream work. Yeah, so how can we ensure sustainability of this anti-corruption fight by young people beyond the individual efforts?
Okay, thank you. If we make this thing a CTA program and continue to, in quote, fight for corruption and all that, of course, it's not sustainable. But then by leveraging on what we have, a massive number of young persons who know that their future and the future of the country is at stake because of what corruption is doing to us collectively, getting them on board the train solves two major problems for us. One, you're going to have an army of young persons who are not doing it because they belong to an organization, a political movement, or anything, but because they believe in the need to do this. And two, persons with sheer will just to have a change. You're beginning to see it. So CTA is an organization that is pushing this and starting it, but then ultimately it's going to be a campaign for the young people of Nigeria who will decide on what and how we're going to have our future, starting with how well they acquaint themselves with the Freedom of Information Act, how they use it, how they demand accountability, and then ultimately they taking over, different aspects of this country to the level where, well, if I'm a crusader and I don't like corruption, if I find myself in office, I believe I should do better and do something different.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel, the Program Officer, CTA Anambra State. Thank you for coming today to speak with us with regards to uniting with young people against corruption, shaping tomorrow's integrity using FOIA 2011 as a tool. Thank you very much for your thoughts today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, this is where we draw the curtain on today's edition of Transparency Talk. Sanitize Nigeria, say no to corruption through the FOI. My name is Priska Wankwo. Thank you for listening.